Hi everybody, welcome back, and if this is your first time, welcome. My name is Haddad, and today we're going to talk about how hot it gets in prison. Now, first of all, if you're the opposition, whatever, and you think prisons, they shouldn't be comfortable, that's fine, but this is a matter of life and death. So what you're actually saying is, I'm fine if people die.
Take what happened to Larry Mccullum. He was serving an 11-month sentence for cashing a bad check and began showing symptoms of heat stroke. But prison employees didn't call EMS until over 40 minutes after he was found convulsing. When Mccullum finally arrived at the hospital, his body temperature was 109 degrees and he died days later.
We're not just talking about murderers and rapists. We're talking about everybody. People that you've met. Likely, any crime that could get you sent to prison, even if it was a mom stealing diapers for her baby, a nun that got her habits, snagged on a nail, and now, oops, she's stripping in front of 9-year-olds. She didn't mean to, but now she is. Your dad, he's got a couple DUIs. Well, there he goes. You are sentencing him to death. That's what we're talking about. So before you make the argument, well, I don't want prisoners to be comfortable. That's fine. We're not trying to make it lush. We're trying to make it humane.
Because in summer, the heat index inside of them can hit 150 degrees. You can find accounts of similar problems in places like Louisiana, and in Alabama, and in Florida, and in Michigan, and in Virginia.
My experience with it was when I was at RDC in Indiana, it was 110 degrees. That was technically illegal, so they fought as much as they could to make it 109 degrees. But it turns out, hey, that doesn't just happen in Indiana. It's not the only state with prisons that don't have AC. It also happens in Texas and a lot of other places. And I know most of you out there, you don't want this. You don't want prisoners to be tortured. You don't want anybody to be tortured. What the problem is, you're not the one in control. The people that are in power say things like, well, we can't afford air conditioning, or we just don't want to. I'm going to show you two clips. A senator in Texas, by the way, not a political argument. It's not just Republicans that are enjoying hurting people. It's Democrats too. They don't give a fuck.
You know, we can talk about this all day. It's not going to change. The prisons are hot, they're uncomfortable, and the real solution is don't commit a crime and you stay at home and be cool. We're not going to air condition them. One, we don't want to. Number two, we couldn't afford it if we wanted to.
For the second clip, let's dismantle that a little bit. I feel like there's an awful lot of money floating around. So the first thing you said is you don't want to, but the second thing you said is we couldn't afford it. It's an awful nice suit you're wearing, and what else have you put money into?
2 years ago, prison officials spent more than $700,000 on new climate-controlled housing facilities. For prisoners, no. For the prison's in-house pig farms.
This second clip is Warden Jeff Pringle, warden of the prison where the inmate died, the clip that I showed you of Mr. Mccullum earlier.
If you were at home and your wife was having a heart attack and you called 911 and it took a half hour for them to arrive, would you have a problem with that?
That's speculating. I don't know. I wouldn't know if she had a heart attack or not.
Okay. I would have a problem with that.
Let's see how involved he is and how much he really cares about the people that he's making millions off of.
Do you suspect that some of the people that come into your facility are going to have hypertension?
I do not know.
Do you suspect that some of the people that come into your facility are going to be, older than 60?
I do not know.
Do you suspect that some of the people who come into your facility are going to be older than 40?
I do not know.
Do you suspect that some of the people that are going to come into your facility are going to be on psychotropic medications?
I do not know.
Wouldn't any competent supervisor, shouldn't he or she know the answers to those questions?
I do not know.
I agree with you. It is pretty pathetic. Now, why is he asking, do you suspect that some older people will be in your prison, or people on psychotropic medicines, antipsychotics, antidepressants, that sort of thing? Well, because heat has a profoundly different impact on people that are of older age or on certain medications.
Over 40% of incarcerated people have a chronic medical condition, raising the risk of heat stroke. So a lot of them worry about what happens when the weather turns hot. Prisons also house an increasing number of people with mental health concerns who require medications that can compromise their body's ability to regulate temperature. So many avoid taking their medications when it's hot, which may explain.
I do not know.
Now, we were in prison. You can basically assume that everyone there had destroyed their lives. And in most cases, they were still destroyed, still in shambles. And in a lot of cases, unfortunately, those lives would never be rebuilt. We were starving, not getting enough food. And obviously this video is about it being hot. But it being hot was not a problem. It was the problem. Despite whatever shape our lives were in, awful, worse than awful, no matter how hungry we were, no matter how many people we missed and how deeply we missed them, the problem was the heat. There was nothing else to think about. Everything we did revolved around managing that heat in a losing situation, fighting off death. I'm lucky, I'm healthy, I managed. You've already heard, plenty of people didn't. When I got there, it was the scariest thing I had ever been a part of. There were literally people dry heaving because of the heat, gagging, vomiting, crying, screaming. You know, in cartoons sometimes or movies, whatever, people will be like, water. It was literally happening. People were yelling, whispering through gravelly voices because they couldn't speak for water. People were having strokes. People were having heart attacks. There was no panic button in the cell. So when someone would have a heart attack or a stroke, their inmate, their cellmate would start shaking the barred doors, trying to get the attention of the guards. And then the people beside them in the other cells would start doing the same thing because they knew if it was just one person, the guards would probably think they were just messing around. And still, with 15, 20, 30 or more cells screaming, yelling, shaking the cell bars, it would take 20, 30 minutes before the guards realized, they've been keeping it up for a while. I guess we should go check to see what it was. If you don't want to take my word for it, that I was uncomfortable, that it was awful, that it was literally nightmarish like hell, not like torture, but actual torture, I'm going to put a link in the description of someone that was at the location I was at, who died because of complications related to his chronic illness that heat exacerbated.
I would have to figure out whether it's a heart attack or not.
Okay.
It'd be just bad chilly.
John Oliver said it best.
What the fuck?
Here's when you take someone to the hospital. When you think it's an emergency, you don't take them to the hospital after you figure out what the emergency is. I would never wish ill or death on someone else. It's just not up to me. I'm not the arbiter of anyone's conduct, and I'm certainly not the judge and jury in a position to sentence anyone to death. And I've said about inmates the whole time I've been posting videos, the reason that I care so much is because it's not just the inmates that are hurting. It's their families, it's their kids, it's their friends, it's people that didn't commit any crimes. If you hate people for committing crimes, these aren't the ones that did it. And they're suffering sometimes worse, a lot of times worse than the inmate themselves, emotionally. And Jeff Pringle, Warden Jeff Pringle, was a man of God. He went to church regularly and was heard saying things like, the most important thing a man can do is live a Christian life. And was often heard at that church I mentioned saying things like, God is good all the time. And I think that might be the one thing that Jeff Pringle, Warden Jeff Pringle, and I agree on. Good riddance.